I have become more patient and understanding and humbled from feeling like I had my parenting ducks in a row with those girls to I don't care what kind of parent you are anymore. I don't do it better than you. I am gonna good game your butt all day long because I got nothing anymore. I got no wisdom for anybody. And I just see parenting and fostering and adoption and guardianship in a whole new way of like we're all really truly just trying to do our best, and your best looks different from my best, and my best looks different from their best.
Hey guys, today on The Kingdom Effect, we're talking adoption. It's never easy, but if you choose to do it, it can be one of the most rewarding things of your life. Hey guys, welcome to The Kingdom Effect podcast. This is Kevin Beasley, and I got my big buddy, Glenn Buckshot Buckley. I noticed last week I did not introduce you as Buckshot. I don't know if you noticed that last week.
I did notice it, and I was
Yeah.
very thankful that you had forgotten.
It didn't feel right, man. It just didn't feel like an episode without getting that in there. I actually got that. If there's a podcasting duo that are brothers that Glenn and I listen to a lot, and we're actually good friends with, and they kind of introduced that one of the brothers says, "This is my big brother, Ken Dillingham Jr. the Third." So I thought I'd take at least the big buddy part of it. So. Well, cool. Well, Glenn, I'm going to let you introduce our guest today.
Today we have Rachel Van Hook. She lives here in Jackson with me. Not with me, but in the same city as me, Jackson, Tennessee. I met Rachel back in 2013. She and her husband, Chuck, came in 2010 to Jackson for a church plant, Journey Church. Chuck is the family pastor there. I think he was just a youth pastor when I first met you guys, but you wouldn't know it by looking at him now, but Chuck used to have dreads like down to his butt.
Yeah.
Those are gone now. But Rachel and Chuck are just really, really awesome people, really good friends. They've got a really cool story. So we'll get into that a little deeper after we get to know Rachel a little bit. They recently adopted two boys, and a really cool story behind how that happened and how God kind of put that in their lives. They just have a heart for helping young people and kids, just invest in the lives of kids. They even adopt kids off the street. So yeah, Rachel, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your family, and then we'll kind of from there we'll just kind of dive into the ministry you and Chuck have.
So I'm a Jackson girl. I was born and raised in Jackson here in Tennessee. Graduated 2003. Went off to East Tennessee with my church camp sweetheart of a husband, Chuck, and we went to Johnson University, right in between Gatlinburg and Knoxville. The best of both worlds living over there. It's beautiful in East Tennessee, and that's where our first two daughters were born. We were in ministry. My husband did student ministry. He did an internship, which led to a position at a church in East Tennessee called The Gathering. We were there for a little while before he got a call from my hometown. He said he would never come to Jackson, and all he had in his mind of Jackson was a Jackson boy with like the double collared shirt and a big truck with lights under it. And he said, I refuse. I'll never be that guy. I'll never go to Jackson. So obviously we ended up in Jackson and helped launch a church. In 2010, we had our third baby girl. So we had three girls. It was beautiful and wonderful and sweet and pink and fluffy and tutu-ish. I thought I had all my stuff together as a mom. Like I had it going on. We were good. We knew everything that we were doing. Then we began to pray about adoption. So I'll talk about that story a little bit here in a minute, but I teach at Community Montessori. It's one of the only public Montessori schools in Tennessee, and that is wonderful. All my kids are there with me, and I'm also currently in grad school getting a specialist degree for mental health and psychology, which I have already been blessed enough to use in the classroom almost daily. My co-teacher just the other day said, well, one day when you leave to counsel, I'll send you all my students. I just told her I don't have to go anywhere. So it's been really wonderful to already start using what I have in the classroom with the kids and in my own home. Yeah, so I think that's it. We stay busy. We do have kids. I call my husband Father Abraham because he is father to every kid he meets. I brought home 8 kids today from school. And Chuck was in here laying on the couch doing some work, and he was like, "How many kids did you bring home?" And I counted up in my head, and he just kept watching them come in the front door. I said, "I think it's 8." And so, yeah, that's just the kind of like the open door life that we live with student ministry and a big family. Being a teacher, there's kids everywhere, kids in our life everywhere, and that's kind of how we like it.
Was that the original plan? Like before you met Chuck, were you like, yeah, God's calling me to student ministry, or did that happen after you met Chuck?
I had an awesome youth minister growing up, and his wife was somebody who I just really admired. And in my prayer journals, I'm kind of rereading back through my prayer journals from growing up, from when I was like 11 or 12. But I have prayers where I would pray to be a youth minister's wife like her. I wanted to be like her, which is so crazy because here I am. I'm a lot more buck than she is because she was pretty quiet and reserved, and I'm a lot more outspoken and crazy and wild. But it's just wild to look back on some of those prayers and see that even in that, I didn't really know what it would take to be a youth pastor's wife. If I would have known now what I didn't know then, I wouldn't have prayed that prayer. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
It's kind of how it works. God's grace. We don't know what we're getting into, right?
That's right.
Well, it's really
That's
weird because it takes special people to be in full-time ministry, period. But then I think it's an extra layer of special to work with young people, with youth. Very extra special layer to work with, like being in the nursery and stuff. So,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, that's so cool. Like I just remember, growing up in the church, the influence that my youth pastor
Right.
had on me. And it's weird because you can have a really close relationship with your kids, your own kids, but there's just some stuff that I go talk to my youth pastor about that I wasn't going to sit down and talk to my dad about. So
Exactly.
youth pastors kind of have that special place.
Yeah. I have the opportunity to my girls are in 7th grade. I have the 7th grade girls. So I still get to roll up there on Wednesday nights and help him, and doing ministry alongside of him has always been something that we love to do together and get to serve together. And he has always been vocal in saying that he is more confident when he sees me out there while he's teaching. And it's just fun to be able to be in that environment together.
Yeah. And that's so cool because what really stinks, and I've experienced this before, is being in a relationship where the passion for the ministry isn't shared between a couple in a relationship, and that makes it really hard.
And there's been times during the adoption was part of it, and I had to tell him, this is a boundary I have to put up for myself to take care of myself and the kids right now. I can't do this. And backing out of that felt like I was almost hurting him or betraying him to stay home. But I knew that God needed me to be at the house, and I couldn't take the kids. They needed to be home, going to sleep. That was like 6 years ago. So it was important for me to be staying home. But it was hard for me to break away from that because selfishly, I love it. And I do love being there with him and going to the camps. So there's been seasons where I have to back away. Same thing with singing. I love to sing at church. The older I get, the more I realize I just imagine myself with plates like balanced and spinning, and they all need to be, spinning well and balanced well. And I can tell now a lot more quickly than I used to when I was younger when something's off balance and something has to go and I need to say a no. And I can confidently give that no of, this is not it for me right now. I got to back away from this.
I imagine it was so much harder to do that back when, you guys were launching Journey Church, because you only have a few staff members, and you basically have to do everything. And so it's so much harder to put one of those plates down when, if you do, it just doesn't get done, to where now it's a little easier to do that because you've got guys that can step in. And
what are some indicators for you that you've gotten over your head a little bit as far as what you're talking about? You said you just kind of have this feeling or something that tells you that, hey, I need to back down from something.
Yeah, I am a ledge jumper. So I'll go to the ledge and just be like, I'm quitting everything. I'm going to quit my job. I need to run away. I need to get away. I can't do anything else. And for me, that's too far. And really, pandemic escalated and revealed some of those areas, and it escalated everybody's stress kind of more so than what we already had. We have a high level of stress all the time, but that my threshold for stress is pretty high. But pandemic wise kind of escalated everything. And I just was constantly wanting to, I'm just going to quit. I'm going to quit everything. Counseling was one. Going to counseling. I take medicine and don't mind to talk about that. There are lots of little kind of coping things that I do for myself to reflect. I like to write stuff down. What all is it that is stressing me or I think is stressing me? And once I write it down and I can kind of categorize or prioritize and organize all of those ISs in one place, then I can kind of work through, well, this actually isn't really a stress, or this actually is causing all the stress and maybe it should go for right now. So just being able to identify that stuff, and counseling really did help me to see some of those things from the outside that I couldn't really see on the inside.
One of the hardest parts for me, because I can tell you, like I start getting, my patience gets really thin at home, and I just start getting weird with my family, and I start losing my passion for my work. So I can identify when I'm getting too much. The hard part is like deciding what's most important. It takes a person really strong in their identity to be able to let stuff go. We kind of find our identity in everything that we do.
Right. And there's knee deep in this specialist program. So that can't go. Unfortunately, my kids can't go. Somebody's got to take care of them. I drop them off, and take a break from them. So there are things, you can't say no to some things. Okay, what can you say no to? What can I step away from? And I'll tell you something huge and really fun is that during pandemic, Chuck found a love for cooking, and the man is like a sexy beast in the kitchen. He took that from me, which was really, really nice and such a big relief, because planning a meal and cooking, it takes a lot of thought, and you have the grocery shopping, and he's taken all that over, and it's wonderful and delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, when I came to pick Anna Kate up, her and Millie to go to the movies, and Chuck's in his I don't want to call them boxers, his pajama shorts with a big old hole in them, and he's got his apron on and cooking eggs and bacon. So definitely a sexy beast when I saw him.
He's a sexy beast.
So you guys just recently, and I can't remember how recently, it seems like yesterday to me, but recently adopted 2 boys. As much as you're comfortable with, share with us that story, kind of how that opportunity came into your life, and any struggles or joys or whatever comes along with that.
I should have busted out my old prayer journals for that, because the way that God specifically answered some of those prayers was absolutely incredible. It kind of started with a relationship that we formed at Journey. We had a family, Joe and Lori Collins, who helped out a lot with the launch of Journey. And I got to know Lori. She runs Redemption Road Rescue Ministry kind of here in town, and does a lot of animal rescue. But they kind of moved on, and that was the relationship. That relationship is vital, and that did form at Journey. Lots of nights of the guys rolling up jumpers at Fun Zone for us to be able to set up church. Lori and I would sit while Chuck and Joe and the guys would roll up the jumpers and take it back down. So I got to know her pretty well. They kind of moved on. So over the next few years, we lost touch. I hadn't really talked to her, but during those years, God had kind of called me, not yet Chuck, to possibly think about adoption. I would mention it to Chuck, and that he wasn't a fan, but I knew that if adoption was to be, then in God's time. Chuck is a processor, and so I knew that if it was right, then it would be right in God's time and in Chuck's time. So we began to pray about that eventually once he was on board, and we called one of my good friends, Angela Snyder, I called her on New Year's Day, 2016, maybe, and let her know, hey, we're interested in possibly adopting. Okay, I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind. We're getting ready to go on a Disney cruise. But when we get back from that Disney cruise in February, I'm going to call you because I'd like to start the process of adoption. She was like, okay, cool. And we go on our Disney cruise and we get back. And we were not home 5 days, not even 5 days. And I get a call from Lori, and it's been like 3 years maybe since I talked to her. I answer it, which a lot of times, I'm just going to be real. If I see somebody call, I'm probably not, if I haven't talked to you in a while, I'm probably not going to answer. But I answered it, started chit-chatting with her. She was looking for information with somebody that I was mutual friends with on Facebook. And I'll also be honest, I'm friends with people on Facebook that I don't really know in real life. So we were mutual friends. I don't even remember her name. Somebody had given Lori this woman's name. Maybe she will adopt. So what had happened was Lori has step-grandsons that were out in Arizona in foster care. And they had been in foster care for a while with their older half-sister. And they were about to kind of move into the system for Arizona and lose contact with their family here in West Tennessee. So Nana is what they call her. Nana stepped in and was able to get, I think, emergency custody of them and moved them back to Tennessee. So she called me to see, did I know this girl? And I was like, I hate to tell you this, but I don't know her. I'm mutual Facebook friends with her, but I don't know her. And she said, well, let me just go ahead and tell you what's going on. I said, that's fine. Go ahead. We hadn't talked in forever. I said, go ahead. She said, well, I have. And she told me the whole story, her step-grandsons and how her son had married their mother. And they had gotten into some stuff, and the boys had gotten into the system out in Arizona, and she was wanting to get them back and get them adopted. She knew she couldn't do it. And she wanted to just make sure, kind of like she rescues animals, she was rescuing these boys, which is so cool. What she didn't know is that Chuck and I had been praying to kind of start the adoption process. So she's looking for information about this lady on Facebook. And I said, you're not going to believe this. And I'm crying. And I say, we have been praying to adopt. And so then she starts crying. But my prayer journals, it's wild because I prayed it would be like Moses in a basket, just floating down the river, just fall into our laps, which anyone familiar with adoption knows you can't pick and choose how you're going to adopt. That's not how it works. You get what you get. And it's a long process. So I was kind of being, I don't know, real picky when I said, let's just let it fall into our laps, God. And it did. And it wasn't just Moses. I laughed because it was Moses and Aaron. I didn't ask for that. We realized that was kind of meant to be. So we ended up working through that long process.
How old were they at this point?
Yeah, they had just turned 4. And then, so they just turned 10. So it's been about 6 years exactly.
I don't know if we said or not, but they are twins.
They are twins. Yeah,
well,
twin boys.
Double portion.
Yeah.
How long was the process? Like once you guys decided on both ends that, hey, we want to pursue this adoption.
Yeah, so we did go through an agency out of Memphis called Hannah's Hope. So we were doing all the stuff on our end to make sure the house was safe and make sure that we had all of the paperwork done. We got all that done as quick as possible. And then she got them home by the end of March of 2016. And very quickly, she's super, super busy. They both are. And she was ready to kind of pass the baton to us as much as we legally could during all of that. And so they would come and spend as much time with us as possible, kind of go back and forth. They would come play. I remember, they would come play on maybe a Thursday night and come spend Saturday morning with us. And then gradually they began to spend more time. But of course, legally, we couldn't keep them or go anywhere with them until things were a little bit more official or rights were terminated. But the full process until they became Van Hooks was a 2-year process.
How about the 3 girls? What was their reaction to all this?
even deeper, if I'm going to go even deeper, I can back up before the adoption with the boys. So that all kind of went down at the top of 2016. In 2015, the teenage boy that had been living with us for about 3 years, Josh, moved out, and that was a really heartbreaking, kind of traumatic event in our family's life. He had been a part of our family. We had not adopted him, but he had been with us for about a full 3 years on and off, and he was a part of our family. So he moved out, and that was not easy, and it was kind of ugly. And then so just like maybe 6 months later, we're working on adopting the boy. So Millie, my youngest, really, Josh kind of came around when she was just months old. And that was one of her first words, Josh, and ball. He always played basketball. So it's Josh, ball. So Millie has never known anything other than us having people in our home. She never knew anything else. She never had time. Like, we kicked her out of her crib and room to stay with the girls as quick as possible so that Josh could have a room. And we didn't have much time in between Josh and the adoption of the boys. I worry about that. I always will worry about that, I think, if I'm honest. Are they okay? And I talk to them. I try to check in with them and just say, how, are you really okay? Because it has been hell. It really has. And obviously we have to parent them and counsel the boys different than the girls. And the discipline is often, and the consequences are often in that, that comparison of like what it would have been, what it could have been had we not. And the conversations, though, that we get to have in our family of following Jesus is not easy. And following Jesus, Jesus' life was not easy. And the way that he loved people was sacrificial, while also being very intentional to make sure that all 5 of the kids know how loved they are and that they each get quality time in their own love language, like knowing those girls' love language and the boys too. But in speaking about them, knowing how they feel loved, knowing what they need, and making sure that we did not like choose the boys over them, and that this is what, this integration of loving people and adoption is what Jesus' whole life was. I mean, people just came and went out of Jesus' life, and they lived with him. They were adopted in by him, and then sometimes would go out. So it has been such a great opportunity to share most genuine, closest to Christ as you could possibly get, hard love, and let them see that firsthand.
Yeah, that's good stuff. When I took a couple of mission trips to Africa, I was just on the cusp of like, really, man, am I supposed to go and live the rest of my life in Africa? And I had people close to me go, what about your girls? What about your girl? Because at the time I had Aubrey and Mackenzie, get to see them every other weekend. And honestly, ultimately, Africa was not where God had me going. But as I'm processing this, I'm thinking to myself, had God called me to go on a permanent basis, what was more important to me? Was it staying at home in the U.S. with my kids, but yet them seeing me be disobedient, or them, or having less time with them, but modeling, obedience to God's call on your life? So oddly enough, I was at peace with going and them seeing that. I tell people all the time, my parenting may be a little different because I try to look at like eternal value.
Exactly. Sure.
Because like I spent all of Aubrey Mackenzie's life missing birthday parties and piano recitals and ball games because of my career, being in law enforcement and being on call and all these, and having to put other people before everybody else. I missed all these things, and I felt so burdened by that for so long. But then like looking today, it's like both of my older daughters, both have careers in service, in serving others. So, it's like one's an EMT and one's in nursing. And it's like, okay, it was totally worth missing those T-ball games so that seeing my daughters now living a life of service, because they saw the value in that when they were little.
Yeah. And what better way too? I mean, you can read the Bible and you can talk about Jesus and you can talk about mission work all the time. And my second oldest, Julianne, she's 12 and she has always wanted to be a missionary, like that Africa type, what's in your mind of what a missionary looks like. She always prayed to be a missionary. And then once we adopted the boys, she kept praying, I want to be a missionary. I want to be a missionary. And I just got to tell her, like, this is it. You're getting to be a missionary right here. And the opportunities are endless for when, they watch me and Chuck cry and they watch us pray and they watch us have conversation after conversation with the boy. And I just call them opportunities. And every time we discipline the boys and redirect them, it is another opportunity for them to eternally, eternal wise, if that's the direction we're looking, that is what we need. We need more opportunities, because I think of this. I did some dyslexia training not long ago, and a child who has signs of dyslexia needs to have specific letter sounds and new sounds presented to them like 35 times, some kind of like 30 number, compared to a normal child's like 7, where a normal child might catch on after 7 times of hearing this new sound. Got it, let's go, let's read. Another child has fallen behind because they didn't get that specific instruction the way they needed it, that many times, the amount of times that they needed to move on. And that's how I feel in comparison. Like, my girls need to follow a rule 7 times. I can ask you to do something, or you're going to have a consequence, or we're going to discipline them or give them a rule. You might need 7 times before you understand we mean business. I promise on my life, the boys need like 100 to their 5. So I do consider it is not fun. It is not easy, but I do consider those opportunities, because what we're doing now is going to be able to protect them in the future.
Well, I know Chuck, being a father of 3 daughters myself, I know Chuck is just on cloud 9 that he's got 2 boys that play baseball and do guy stuff with. That's got to be great for him. I can only imagine. I remember seeing you guys at the soccer game, and the boys showed up from a baseball game. Not that it wasn't real before, but it just makes it even more real. Like when I saw Van Hook on the back of their baseball uniforms.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I can't imagine like the first time you guys saw that, like when you get home and you're unboxing the uniform and Chuck goes, man, I've got a son that's got Van Hook on the back of his baseball jersey.
Yeah. On the court date, their adoption court date, February 16th, 2018, they got our 2 favorite sports teams are the Braves and the Cowboys. So one of them had the year was 18. So that's the number that was on the back, and it said Van Hook. So one of them got a Cowboys jersey and one of them got a Braves jersey, and it swallowed them. It was the cutest thing you've ever seen. And I also remember being at church when Chuck checked them in at the kids check-in area, and he changed their name to Van Hook that first time. And I kept the little sticker and put it in my Bible, and I'm like, whoa, this is so crazy.
We can only relate that to Jesus and us, right? So like you mentioned that earlier, that was a life of Christ. It's just, he wants to, God's adopting us all into his family. But yeah, what are some lessons you've learned with your identity in him as a result of having these boys?
Yeah, even back when we had Josh living with us, I would pray some of the same prayers I pray now with these boys of like, God, why can they not just listen? Why can they not just follow directions? Why do they have to be so ignorant? Why do they have to make these dumb choices? All these things. And it would just like ton of bricks hit me. This is like, God, this is you, Rachel. This is y'all always. Of God just saying, I stay telling you what I would love for you to do. I stay telling you to be thankful and grateful in all things. I stay telling you to work hard for me. And you don't do that. So the biggest thing for me, I have become more patient and understanding and empathetic and humbled from feeling like I had my parenting ducks in a row with those girls, to like, I don't care what kind of parent you are anymore. I don't do it better than you. I don't do it better. I understand. I am gonna good game your butt all day long because I got nothing anymore. I got no wisdom for anybody. And I just see parenting and fostering and adoption and guardianship in a whole new way of like, we're all really, truly just trying to do our best. And your best looks different from my best. And my best looks different from their best. The judgment and comparison, I see it at school often too, among teachers. You have a classroom of kids and you don't parent like your students' parents do. So you assume that your way is better than their way, but it's not. That's what they know, or maybe that's what's culturally appropriate. That doesn't mean it's wrong. That doesn't mean that your way is right or better. There's been a lot of self-reflection in that way of that's their best and that's okay. I support that. I can come alongside of that. I got your back on that. And that has been humbling. There's been times when that has been very humbling of I don't have it together. I don't know it. And just this last week, both boys were in trouble. And this is maybe not my story to tell, it's theirs. But I had one cussing a teacher and I had the other stealing money from me. He's in my class right now. He stole money. So I had like major consequences because those are opportunities. And I told him I'd rather you have 100 of these consequences now that are hard, especially at the end of the year when there's so much fun going on around you. I'd rather 100 days of you missing out on something fun now than a night in jail when you're 18. So if I can keep that up now, and I'm going to tell you, Chuck is a real saint. He is a real king when it comes to parenting those boys because he is firm and loving and he teaches and he respects them and he won't give them an inch so that they run. I mean, he is everything that those boys could ever need. And he texted me the other day, like, when I give them a consequence, you can't let them. They're supposed to have no screens. You can't go behind my back. You got to make sure we're on the same page. I'm like, you're right. I forgot. He is just every bit of steady that we all need, really, that our whole family needs. But he is exactly what he probably wouldn't tell you that. He would probably question everything that he does. Men, I think, men and women both do that as parents. You question everything that you do, but he is really, really great at parenting those kiddos.
Rachel, what advice would you give to anybody, whether they're in the ministry or whether they're working with a nonprofit? What advice would you give them for when they get to that point where it's like, okay, something's got to go. If not, I'm going to have to quit. The second question would be, what advice would you give to couples that are considering adoption?
Yeah, I'm going to start with that one.
Okay.
I think because a huge piece of my story was I wanted confirmation. So we kept praying and praying like, okay, God, will you confirm this if it's right for us? And I remember being on the way to school one morning before they even came back to Tennessee. And I was just praying like, okay, let me have a sign, God, that this is the right thing for our family to do. And I just remember it was for sure Holy Spirit of, if you're waiting on confirmation to adopt, which is in my word, then you're going to miss out on an incredible opportunity. Stop waiting because I'm not going to confirm this. And I remember writing a blog post titled something to the effect of when confirmation becomes a crutch. I was waiting on God to give me something that I didn't need him to. I'd already prayed for it. And he kind of said, you've already prayed for this. I've already asked you to do it. I ask anybody to do it. You just need to do it. And so I remember thinking like, okay, I'm going to walk out on the water, but I don't have a life jacket. It's dark and stormy. I'm just going to go. We got to go. We've got to do this.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me. And that's a whole next level of faith.
Yeah.
It really is. And I say often the bigger the yes, the bigger the bless. That's another thing I like to say. The more you say yes to God, he begins to trust you with bigger and better, that game, bigger and better that kids love to play. He really will. You say yes to one thing and he'll give you something which can be scary too, but great. And then when it comes to self-care, I'm going to for sure, I've gone back to school, grad school for this particular reason, and that is counseling. Chuck went tonight, and I don't think he'd mind me saying that either, because we're pro counseling. We have a couple in our church who does it. I'm hoping to maybe one day help them out with doing some kid counseling, finding someone that you can sit and talk with, and that can help you walk through what you've gone through in life, what you're going through in life. Be that outside, that witness on the outside looking in and telling you what they see or maybe what you need. Because sometimes you don't know what needs to go. You don't know what you're feeling. And having somebody kind of being able to say, I see this. Oh, yeah. Yes, that's it. You nailed it.
Or even just somebody to help you process it and identify things, because sometimes you're just in such denial. You're so far into whatever it is that you no longer can see it. Like, you don't think to breathe, so you don't think to do these other things.
And then on top of that, little things that you don't think are that big of a deal. And knowing, like, putting aside maybe what other people think, and if it's at nighttime, if you sleep better with a certain blanket, if you want to, treating yourself in those little bitty ways of like, this makes me happy, and those happy endorphins that we all maybe need a little bit, little things like that, all the way up to big things like counseling, and that may be expensive, or figuring out what the solution would be for maybe you to talk to somebody or have somebody to pour into you in that department.
Good stuff. Well, thanks so much, Rachel. Glenn, I'm gonna ask you what your number one takeaway is from tonight. But while you're thinking about it, I'll share mine. There's two ways that we can approach when we feel like God's leading us to do something right. We can either, like you said, just sit back and wait for confirmation. It's the same result on the other end. Either we're sitting back and waiting, and either he's going to say yes or he's going to say no. But I don't know, I'm kind of impatient. So sometimes it just saves a ton of time to just do it, like maybe, like, instead of asking, maybe the way you ask is to just go after it and see if he kind of trips you up. Right.
Yep,
so
that's right.
And I think he's so much more pleased with just that innocent, childlike faith to just do it, Yeah. So that's like my takeaway for our listeners tonight is, man, if you feel like the Lord just might be putting something on your heart, just take a step. Just take your first step and do it and see what happens. And if it's not right, he loves you. He cares about you. He cares about your future. He cares about, if it's adoption, he cares about those potential adoptive kids. So just do it and try. You're trusting this one way or the other. So just do it and trust that if it's not right, he'll close the door for you. Right. And he will bless you for that aggressiveness. I don't know. That's my big takeaway. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. It's challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
Glenn?
I think mine was, I really related to Rachel in the, man, I got so much going on. Something's got to give. I'm ready to quit my job because it's more than I can handle or whatever. And I think that's really good for me to hear, because I've never really been real good at processing that. So, like, the idea that you had of, let me write all these things down, let me evaluate them kind of in a singular sense, just decide what's got to go. Like, I can remember at one point I was, working a full-time job and leading worship at youth group and Celebrate Recovery, and just had all these things going on, Scarlet Rope Project. So I had all these things going on. It's like, okay, I got to let something go. What is it? And that was such a hard decision for me, when in reality, it should have been a really easy one. The idea of sitting down and evaluating those collectively as a group, and then singularly, and kind of breaking it down.
Yeah. And on that, I'm an Enneagram 3, which means I am an achiever. I love to achieve. I don't compete with you. I don't care to compete with you, but I'm going to compete with myself. And that can be really hard. Very pridefully sometimes think I can do it best, so I might as well just do it. If I'm not there, it's going to fall apart. And so I've learned a lot of good lessons, and I'm continuing to learn that things are not going to fall apart. The world does not need me as a glue to hold everything together.
That's so good.
And I do feel like that. I feel like if I don't teach these kids something, I can do it best. I can do that best. And even with the cooking, like, it has become a joke in my house that mama can't cook anymore. Don't you forget, I can cook. I've got you here today. I can cook. But letting that go of like, that's okay. The world's not going to fall apart if Chuck cooks really great meals. It's going to be a better place, actually. So just remembering those kinds of things of it's okay to say no. What's the worst that could happen? I say that often these days. What's the worst that could happen?
Well, Rachel, thanks for being here with us today and
Yeah.
sharing just a small piece of your story. And, I know you and Chuck well, and I know that 50 minutes didn't come anywhere near covering y'all's story, but we just really wanted to hear about, your adoption process and really encourage people that are either have adopted or thinking about adopting, and then encourage other people that are in nonprofits and other ministries and stuff like that too. So we value your story. We thank you for sharing it with us. And hopefully we can get Chuck on here soon.
Yeah, you should. And really, if anybody wants to connect with me, I wish you would send them to me because it's the most rewarding thing. And I have never regretted.
What is your new Instagram, the one that you're doing? What's it called?
Oh, that is like the most raw. My Instagram that has all my stuff is Rachel J. Van Hook. But I am, yes, attempting to throw all of my circus into a book. I am excited about that. It's Open Book Van Hook is what I hope to have one day out. Chuck is the most private. I'm going to tell you a secret. He's going to kill me. Can I say a secret? I started typing up something about just like our relationship in college and some of the things we were struggling with and working through. And I told him that. He was like, no, absolutely not. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, there's another episode. Thanks for listening. Rachel Van Hook. Instagram at Open Book Van Hook. Sounds like you can find some pretty juicy stuff on there. So go check it out.
Probably.
Like her. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening. But thanks for joining us. Thank you, Glenn and Rachel. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next time on the Kingdom Effect podcast.